Killed it on the colony.
We were reading about, well, we read and discussed the Federalist Papers. Yes? Okay. Outside, and that was nice, yes.
That was so nice. It's still really nice.
I took the class the next day out, so they got to go out too. So, nice. Good discussions. Oh, I need to give you some points for that.
Yes, please.
Right? You guys want some points for that?
I would very much enjoy that.
Is everybody here except for Riley?
Riley.
Riley, she's remote today.
He's skipping school again.
So this is 5th hour. Let me do this before I forget, huh? Give you some points.
She's fine. Her mom may have it.
Wow.
Our teacher.
You can just do it off.
Here we go. 5th hour. Plus assignment. Federalist Papers.
It happened last Wednesday, so I kind of
Discussion. And.
last Wednesday.
Points. And.
We just didn't keep it.
Yeah, we close.
And it was a competition.
And
then
then
it's
put this on.
Don't recommend it.
Everybody's grade just went up a little bit.
You know, it's the worst when you watch soccer, go head along and hit each other.
There you go. Thanks for reading those and the discussion. Okay. All right. So what's the last thing you have in your notes?
Federals. Explain the Constitution. The national government has certain obligations to the states.
Okay, so we were talking about Article 4 of the Constitution, and those obligations included respect for territorial integrity, right?
Yeah.
And protection against violence, domestic violence or invasion, and make sure that they have representative forms of government in their states, okay? So that's something the federal government really has to do for the states, okay? So that kind of sums up Article 4 of the Constitution. So let's talk about Article 5 of the Constitution. And this is one of the neat things about our Constitution, guys, is they put in a way to change the Constitution without starting over from scratch. So Article 5 is, how do you amend the Constitution? Okay? So there's two ways to propose. Now, I have a graphic. Actually, I have a page in your book on this. Let's see here. On, oh, yeah, page 53 in your book, okay? Which looks kind of complicated, so I'm going to uncomplicate it for you, okay? It's really easy, okay? So 2 ways to propose, 2 ways to ratify. Ratify means to formally approve. That's a vocab word I think all of you probably know. Okay. All right. So, 1. By a 2/3 majority in both houses of Congress to propose an amendment. Okay? All 27 amendments have been proposed this way. The other way is by joining the cult. A national convention of the states. 2/3 of the state, okay, so I'm going to go national convention of the states. The last time we had one of these was when we wrote the new Constitution in Philadelphia. So if you'll recall, there were 55 delegates from the 13 states that came together in Philadelphia in the summer, May through September of 1787. That's exactly what we would do to propose amendments in a national convention of the states. Yes.
Who, if we had a national convention of the states, who would attend? The governors, or just?
You could send governors for sure. You could send state reps, former governors, just somebody that represents the will of the people of Kansas. And you would send maybe 3 or 4 from each state Each state could decide. I mean, they probably have a limit, maybe 5, and then you would pick who would go. Okay. Now, so this 2/3 of the states is 34 states. That's how many you need. Okay. Right now, there's 14 states that have pledged delegates to a national convention. Okay. For the purposes of proposing amendments, key being term limits for members of Congress. Okay. They don't really bring up the 16th and 17th Amendment thing that I brought up. Okay. Although there are people in our cult that really feel strongly about those two. Okay. So, yeah, so it's doable, and they did that and put that in there for a reason, guys. For this reason, because Congress won't do it themselves. Another one that people talk about is a balanced budget amendment. You guys know the state of Kansas has to balance its budget every year. So if they have a shortfall, they have to make cuts to education, to the transportation, which are the two biggest things that Kansas spends money on, just like the church. 85% of what the church does in the Diocese of Wichita goes towards education, paying my salary and buying, the stuff we need in here. Okay. Same thing with the state of Kansas. Most of the money goes to education and transportation. So they have to make cuts there if there's a budget shortfall. You follow me? So if it's a bad year for farmers, that hurts the tax base. You know what I mean? If oil prices are way down, natural gas prices are way down, that hurts the tax revenue for the state of Kansas. If crop prices and oil go down. Okay. So, what am I talking about? Yeah, balanced budget. Yeah, so balanced budget amendment for the federal government as we tick up to $30 trillion of national debt. Okay, so the $1.9 trillion COVID relief package, you guys following any of this? Yeah. Very little of it, less than half of it is actually going to COVID relief. A bunch of that other money's going. And as there's billions of dollars from the previous COVID packages that hasn't even been spent yet. So I saw one member of Congress post this that was opposed to it. Said, so for each American, it's costing $5,100 to do the 1.9 trillion. And the average payout to the people that are getting a check is $1,500. So where's the rest of that money going? So, I mean, I've kind of tuned out a little bit on the politics since the election. I apologize. I need to start paying a little bit closer attention, but I just kind of got beat down and I'm like, I can't watch the news right now. Okay. I mean, I do read, listen to the radio some, but okay. So once an amendment is proposed, it has to be ratified. Okay. Just like the Constitution had to be ratified. All right. So there's two ways. One is by 3/4 of state legislatures approving it. Okay. Which would be 38 state legislatures, would be 3/4. Is it easy to propose and ratify a constitutional amendment? No, it's not. It's really hard. Or there'd be a bunch more. Yeah. Okay. So like, say you're like against the Electoral College and you want us to be more democratic and you want to have a popular vote for president. You'd have to get this done. Okay. Now, I could see maybe one day 2/3 both Houses of Congress. I doubt it. Okay. But you're not going to get 38 states to go along with that. Because the small states are going to be like, screw that. We want to keep the Electoral College. It protects us. It gives us some say. You follow me? Okay. So I don't see that ever going away. Not anytime soon. Okay. Now, 26 of the 27 amendments have been ratified via state legislature vote. Okay. Now, in Topeka, guys, I don't know if you got to have 2/3 of the vote in Topeka to ratify. I bet every state constitution is different. Okay, so I'm not going to give you a number on that. Just know that the state legislatures have to approve it, okay? The second way to ratify is 3/4 of the states having conventions. Okay, so I'm going to go off topic for a minute. When we have a primary and caucuses, okay, so Joe Biden was one of like 12 or 14 Democrats that were vying for the nomination of his party, the Democratic Party. So you had Kamala Harris, you had Cory Booker, you had Elizabeth Warren, you had Bernie Sanders, you had a bunch of them, right? You guys remember that? Okay. So in Kansas, we run caucuses instead of a primary. A primary would be just like a general election where you would vote for one Democrat. Choose the Democrat that you want to represent the party if you're a Democrat. Does that make sense? Okay, so caucuses work differently. Do you guys know how many counties there are in the state of Kansas? Somebody make Coach Lawbone proud. How many counties there are in the state of Kansas? No, they're not all boxes like that. 105. 105 counties in the state of Kansas. All right. So, in a state convention scenario or a caucus scenario, Sedgwick County is one of the biggest counties population-wise. Okay. So when we had our caucus, the Republicans held it at Century 2 in 2016, 2012, 2008. They held caucuses down. Okay. And I was at those caucuses in 2016 and 2012. Yeah, maybe 2008 as well. I think I've been down 3 times. So what happens is there in each county, they have a vote. Okay. And so for the Republican caucus, let's go back to 2016. Okay. By the time we held our caucus in Kansas, it was down to Trump, Cruz, Rubio, and John Kasich, governor of Ohio. Okay, Kasich had no chance. Okay, and so really it was kind of down to Trump and Cruz. But I remember going to this, and Cruz won Sedgwick County. Okay, and then you added up all the counties, and Cruz won the state of Kansas. Does that make sense? So in a state convention, what you would be looking at is like a caucus. So each county would get together to vote for or against this new amendment. And if you had a majority of the counties that said, yes, we want to ratify this amendment, it would become an amendment. Does that make sense? In 38 states. One of the 27 amendments was ratified through this method. You guys know which one? Let me give you a hint. It must have been a spirited convention. I did that already. Yeah. So yeah, the repeal of prohibition, the 21st Amendment was ratified through this man. Okay. So people got together in their counties and voted they wanted alcohol again. Okay. So that's pretty simple, right? So what's the most common way? Right here and right here. Yes? Acting together. Yeah? Simple, but not simple. Not easy. Simple, but not easy. Okay. So, you break our amendments up. You got 1 through 10, right? And those were all ratified in 1791. The last 17 were ratified through. The last one was ratified in 1991. Okay. Now, I want to stop here for a minute and talk about something that might be a little bit sensitive. Besides term limits, the last 2 amendments that have been talked about being proposed by Congress, one was a flag burning amendment that would make it illegal to burn the American, desecrate the American flag in protest. And there were many conservative members of Congress that supported this idea, some Democrat members that supported this idea. And then there were others that said, you know what? Freedom of expression, burning the flag in protest, desecrating the American flag, is an extension of free speech. If we really respect free speech, then we should allow it. It should not be a crime. And if we, and for that reason, somebody that's pretty conservative, I'm like, no flag burning event, because you see this on social media stuff, when you see somebody doing it, you're like, it pisses you off. It might piss you off. It pisses me off. I'll just tell you, I don't like watching it, but I'll die for your right to do it, because that's what makes us truly free. Okay, we are a free nation. Okay, and if you are upset about something in our history or something currently going on, and you want to protest this country, God bless you. More power to you. Okay? I may disagree with you, or I may agree with you, but you have a right to do it. That's freedom. Okay? The other one was called the ERA. This was the 1970s. Okay? We know what the ER stands for? Not emergency room. The Equal Rights Amendment. Okay. You guys remember the 14th Amendment? I talked about it early on. It was right after slavery. Okay. And the Equal Rights Amendment said that all citizens would have equal protection under the law. Okay. When it comes to, right here, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Okay. Okay. No step, let me just read this to you. Okay. All persons born or naturalized in the United States are subject to the jurisdiction thereof, are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process, nor deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection under the law. It's the 14th Amendment. Now, this happened right after the Civil War. Okay? And what this does is it protects you from your national government. So it takes the Bill of Rights, these first 10 amendments, and says to the states cannot take away these rights you have. It incorporates the Bill of Rights into the states. Okay? Okay. So the 15th Amendment gives black men the right to vote, colored men the right to vote. Who does it not give the right to vote to? Black women and white women, or any women. So we have to wait till the 19th Amendment for that. Why didn't the 14th Amendment cover voting and women? Equal protection under the law. Because the context of the 14th Amendment is dealing with race, ethnicity, and national origin, not gender. This is Equal Rights Amendment is for women in the 1970s. Okay? Because under the way the Supreme Court reads the Constitution, the 14th Amendment does not protect women in the same way as it protects men. So, you needed 2/3 of both houses to propose the Equal Rights Amendment. Check. That happened. Then they sent it to the states. Okay? you need 38 states. Yeah, 38 states, okay? 33 ratified the Equal Rights Amendment, okay? Now, most amendments since the Bill of Rights have had a sunset period of 7 years. So once Congress sends it to the states for ratification, you have 7 years to ratify it. Okay? Now, what I'm going to tell you is going to steal a little thunder. When the Bill of Rights were proposed, there were actually 12 proposed. Only 10 were ratified. One of those was the 27th Amendment in 1991. Was one of these two that was not ratified along with the original Bill of Rights. There was no sunset period on that amendment. You follow me? But there was a sunset period on the Equal Rights Amendment. They got 33 states. They extended the period for ratification for 2 years, hoping to get 5 more states to ratify. In that 2-year period, 5 states decommitted their ratification. They changed their mind. So you were back down to 27. Equal rights. And here's where the problem comes in. It's weird. It's kind of an is that the word I'm looking for? Not oxymoron, but it's a catch-22. This case, Brown versus Board of Education, 1954. Okay, you guys all know this case? This is the one that said separate is not equal, right? Plessy versus Ferguson, 1896. Even though we had the 14th Amendment that said equal protection under the law, Plessy in 1896 said you could have separation of the races. Segregation, Jim Crow laws, those are legal. That separate is equal. In reality, it wasn't, especially in our schools, right, and other places. So in 1954, they said separate is not equal. This is the problem with the ERA amendment. This is why 5 states rescinded it when they started to think about it. In this room, one group of people at the age of 18 has to register for something that the other group of people does not. What's that? Selective service of the draft. All the male people in here have to do that. Well, Henry won't have to do that, but the others will. Okay? So the women will not. Men and women are separated in society where? Down the hall, the restrooms, the locker room, some college dormitories, and so forth. Have we talked about this before? When did I bring this up? I don't think you did.
You didn't talk about it, but not like in the
Okay.
I think it was in the context of transgender.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is, I mean, it's a perfect, well, they're aligned. The issue with transgenders and the Equality Act that we talked about last hour a little bit. So what you would have to do, guys, to pass this is not have any separation of the genders. That would be illegal. To have separate restrooms, locker rooms, spaces. And women would be subject to the draft if we had one. Now, we haven't had a draft since the Vietnam War. Okay. And we're not likely to have one. Usually we have enough people volunteer if there's a need. Yeah, I hope that would be the case, that we wouldn't need a draft again. I pray we don't ever have to have one again, because that would not be good for the world or humanity. But it's there. Women's roles in combat. Now, that's a debatable issue too, and the government has open combat to female soldiers today, okay? They've opened up, the Citadel, they've opened up West Point, they've opened up Navy SEALs for women to try out for that, and so forth, okay? So this is a hot button issue, okay? I don't know if we will see this pushed out there again, okay? I would imagine we will at some point, okay? And we'll have to decide as a society whether we're ready to do away with, the separation of the genders, to allow that legally. Okay. So, yeah. So, ladies, I'm not sure where you are politically, feminist-wise, and that sort of thing. Yeah, I'm not opening that one. I'm not going there. Okay. Equal pay for equal work. How about we go there? Have you heard the 72 cents nonsense, where women earn 72 cents on the dollar of what men make? Have you heard this? Okay, that number's a loaded number. Okay. We all choose what we go into, what we study. Yes? And the fact is that some of the careers that men choose pay higher. I'm a teacher, okay? Are there more female teachers than there are male teachers? Yes, it's a low-paying job, okay? I signed up for it, okay? What about nursing? Are there more females in nursing? Now, if you look at our med schools, guys, we are producing way more now female doctors than male doctors. If you look at our colleges right now, there are more women in college than there are men in college, and it's been that way for a couple of decades now. Okay, so that's good in one sense. So the 4 to 6 year gentlemen that you're on campus, there'll be fewer of you and more women, so that might be good for you. Ladies, not so good for you if you're looking for the guy of your dreams. Okay, you have fewer to choose from. Sorry. Okay, but the fact is, if you have a college degree, you're going to make more money. Now, that depends on what kind of career you do. Some of the jobs that are high-risk jobs are dominated by men. There's not too many women bricklayers. Okay, there's not too many women that work on skyscrapers, cleaning windows, but they could. Okay, some of the higher-risk, high-paid jobs tend to be dominated by men. Okay. We know about science and engineering, right? I'm married to my wife is an engineer. She works in a male-dominated world. Okay, most of her people she works with are men. Okay, there's some women. Okay, any of you guys taking engineering, ladies? Right, good, go for it. Okay, any of you, engineering, business. Med? Engineering? 4-year degree. Come out making way more than Mr. Ebrecht the first year.
Yeah, but you have to do math. You have to know how to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're good at math.
Math makes me.
You're not bad at math.
I don't like that.
You just don't like it.
That's true.
I was bad at it. There's a difference.
No.
Okay. I just encourage that because you know what we import a lot of engineers to this country because we don't graduate enough. Okay. Same with doctors. So, how many of you guys medicine? I don't know if I ever told you this story. When my son was born, you know where they always check the fingers and toes, right? That's not just a thing; they do check it. Okay. And when my son was born, he was born like this. He had web fingers. So, he comes out and like, oh, there's Jack. What's going on? What's wrong? Right? Our OBGYN was a Carroll grad. Okay? And then, so this webbed fingers, like webbed toes, can be hereditary. So they said, try and find if anybody in your family has webbed toes or fingers. We found somebody in my wife's family, which was good, because if you don't have somebody in your family that has this gene, then it could be some other problems. So they brought in a geneticist to look at the baby. Carroll grad. I'm like, I think I'm teaching at the right school. Okay? Yes. All right. So, and he's fine. When he was 1, we had him separated. So just when he started walking, he had these big bandages on his hands, falling down and stuff. They took graft skin from his groin area here and put the skin on the fingers here. First time they took the bandages off, my wife passed out. So you know who changed the bandages on those. So that was me. And then I had subsequent surgeries on those afterwards, just to clean them up a little bit, scar tissue and stuff. But anyhow, what are we talking about? Yeah, so that number is a little bit misleading. Now, let's talk about this because I think it's called Lilly Ledbetter Law is the name of it, where they could force you to pay the same to a male and female employee at your job, okay? So, guys, I want you to think about this. I know we're getting a little off course here, guys, but it's important to talk about. All right, so my wife's an engineer, okay? She went to Virginia Tech, which is a good engineering school, and then she got her MBA from LSU, okay? So she's got 30-plus years of experience in the engineering field, in petrochemicals and minerals and all sorts of different things. And she's a good problem solver. She's a good engineer. The guy sitting in the desk across from her with the same education, the same experience, if he's making more money than my wife because he's a he, who does that hurt? Well, it hurts me because I'm married to her, guys. Right? Because if my wife made as much money as the guy sitting across from her, that would benefit me. Yes? How many of you guys, you don't have to raise your hand. How many of you, mom makes more than dad? Just a couple of us. Okay. That number is growing in this country. You understand? Okay, where the wife is the breadwinner. Okay, so gentlemen should remember that when they think about what women make. But I'm going to put you ladies on the spot. All right? You ready? Yeah, I got 2 of you in here too. Okay. All right, so you own a business. You own your own business, ladies. Okay, and it's a small business. And you're going to hire a salesperson. And how much this salesperson sells for your business is going to affect whether your business survives or is like 50% of small businesses in this country, they will fail. You've got 2 qualified candidates. One's a guy, one's a girl. Okay? Now, you happen to know this girl is Catholic. She just graduated from college a couple of years ago and just got married. And then you got the guy who is married and has a couple kids. Okay? Now, ladies, you're the owner of the business. What could you suppose might happen with this woman if you hire her in the next year, 2 years, 3 years down the road? She's going to get pregnant and have to start a family. Now, under federal law, you have to give her time paid off. Paid time off. Yes? Now, when Jack was born, I missed 2 days of school. And I came back to work. Okay. Mr. Mans, Mr. Shellhammer just had kids, right? They're back. If that was the mom, if it was Mrs. Barrientos or Quintana, how long were they gone? 6 weeks. All right. you gotta hire somebody. This is the bottom line. Now, one thing you could do is you could hire the woman and factor in. Now, when you guys were kids, all of you, I'm including everybody here. When you were a kid and you got sick and you had to stay home from school, who generally stayed home with you more, mom or dad? Grandma? We don't have one of those.
I was someone.
Oh, I have
Probably
older
mom.
sister
Probably
too, so
mom.
like I have an older sibling.
Mom.
So older
Even
sibling.
though my wife makes a lot more money than I do, she stayed home more than I did. Because I hate missing school. I really don't like missing school. Okay? But, I mean, I've taken in 21 years, like 3 sick days.
Do you like sick days and vacation days add up every
There's a cap.
week?
You don't get to add them up over 20 years. That'd be nice. But you have to work for the public
It's
schools.
like my dad does and he never takes days off. It's like
You
lots
work
of
for the
vacation.
government. Yeah. Yeah, you can like get 6 months off at the end of your career. You get paid for it.
You know
sick
someone
leave.
who takes every Friday off.
I don't have that. Not doing that. Okay. But anyhow. So you may choose to hire the girl, the female, but based on what may happen, you pay her a little bit less. Is that fair? Or you hire both of them and you pay her a little bit less. It's your livelihood, it's your business. You're going to have to decide. Okay. All right. So, yeah, nothing is as simple as it seems. All right, so that was Article 5. How much time do I have? We can do Article 6. Article 6. Okay, how you would like label this would be national debt and federal supremacy. National debt and federal supremacy in Article 6. Okay. Basically what it says here, all debt, you don't have to write this down, all debts existing prior to the adoption of the new Constitution will be honored. We're not going to start like a banana republic. The Constitution and federal laws are the highest law of the land. That's called the Supremacy Clause. So when you have a federal law that contradicts with a state law, the federal law trumps it. When the U.S. Constitution butts up against a state constitution or a state law, the U.S. Constitution is the supreme law. Follow me? Federal and state officials owe their first loyalty to the U.S. Constitution. And there's no religious test for holding office. You don't have to be a certain religion. That's what's mentioned in Article 6 of the Constitution. But the main thing to remember is the Supremacy Clause. Okay? So again, when we talked about the Federalists, the Anti-Federalists, where this new power lies is with the federal government, the national government, the central government. Okay? Article 7 simply says the Constitution must be ratified by 9 of the 13 states. So now it's irrelevant, the 7th article. Okay, it had to be ratified by 9. It was ratified by all 13. Okay. What I was hoping to do with the amendments, and I'm gonna stop recording here, try and make this video a little bit shorter. So don't worry, I'll catch you up on anything. There's no more notes. Okay. Bye guys. See you tomorrow.